Hello everyone, DonTheCrown here, and today I want to talk some more about damage buckets and what I think about the different Berserker key passives at the very bottom of the tree. Now, if you've been playing any of the playtests, we haven't really gotten to test these too much, although there are some people that have gotten to play some private playtests that we don't have access to. I personally haven't gotten to mess with these, but I want to give you what I think about these different ones and why I think possibly the most popular one might be more of a noob trap than it seems like at first glance. So going left from right here, the very first one we have is Unconstrained. This one's pretty straightforward. It increases the Berserk's maximum duration by 5 seconds and increases its damage bonus by an additive 25%. So Berserk is a buff that gives you more damage and a little bit more movement speed, and I believe it's 25% damage and then some movement speed on top of that, and it's something that you can kind of like keep rolling, but it's a relatively short buff. And I believe the longest duration that a Berserk can have is currently from Wrath of the Berserker here, which gives you a 5-second Berserk buff when you hit with a basic attack, or when you just activate this. So this should make it so that Berserk's maximum duration is now 10 seconds. Instead of providing a 25% damage buff, it'll be 50. So this is pretty straightforward. Now there's one kind of interesting interaction with this with Wrath of Berserker, with Supreme Wrath of the Berserker, and that is that while Wrath of the Berserker is active and it lasts 10 seconds, every 50 Fury you spend increases your Berserk's damage bonus by a multiplicative 25%. So normally that would have been like 25 times 0.25, 6% more damage every time you spend 50 Fury, and then this is probably just going to make it 12% more. Now if this multiplies against itself, that ends up being pretty decent, but for the most part, we're looking at, if you can keep Berserk up most of the time, about a 25% more damage multiplier, which to me really isn't all that crazy. Like increasing the maximum duration by 5 seconds is nice, especially on builds where you're not really potentially able to like keep it up so much. But if you're playing like double swing, for example, it's pretty easy to keep the Berserk up, and there's a lot of different ways to gain Berserk. And so that additional 5 seconds doesn't really make too much sense to me. Next up, we have Walking Arsenal. And what Walking Arsenal does is it really rewards you for taking advantage of the arsenal system with Barbarian. So the Barbarian basically has a two-handed bludgeoning weapon, a two-handed slashing weapon, and two one-handed weapons. And you can assign most skills to use whatever weapon you want. By default, they'll just use whatever your best current weapon is. So if you pick up a better slashing weapon, you'll start using your slashing weapon. If you pick up a better bludgeoning weapon, you'll start using your bludgeoning weapon a lot. But if you want to assign a specific weapon to a specific skill, you just press S to open up the skill panel, hover over the skill on your bar that you want to change. You can middle mouse click. The first option is like always auto, and it'll let you see all of the different weapons that you can put it on. Now some skills, like for example Rend, require that you use a slashing weapon, and I believe it's always your two-handed slashing weapon, so you won't be able to change that to like your hammer or something, but for the most part you can change things around. So for example, I typically try to take Lunging Strike and assign my dual wield weapons to that, because my dual weapons are faster, lets me build up basic resources better. So Walking Arsenal takes advantage of this system by making it so that when you deal direct damage with a two-handed bludgeoning weapon, a two-handed slashing weapon, or dual-wielded weapons, it gives you a times 10% damage. So this is 10% multiplicative damage for 6 seconds. And that kind of seems okay, but while you have all three bonuses active, you get an additional 15% more damage on top of that. And all of these bonuses should multiply across each other. So if this is your only source of all damage, then these all times together. Now if you have like Berserking or Warcry or a couple of other things, these all times together as well, making this pretty attractive. Now, how much damage is this though by itself in a bubble? Well, if you only use one weapon, it's a 10% more damage buff. But if you're using two weapons, those multipliers times against each other. So we go for 1.1 times 1.1, it becomes a 21% more damage buff. And it's pretty easy to keep the 2 buff up all the time. Much easier than it is to do with Berserking. This is really like brain off style play. You just assign your builder to one weapon. If you're only using a spender with a weapon, you assign the spender to be a different weapon. But the real magic kicks in once you figure out a way to get to that 3rd weapon. And that makes it so that you get another 10% multiplier and then a 50. Oh, I've screwed up here. You get another 10% multiplier. Just ignore that part. And then you, on top of that, get a 15% multiplier. So it adds up to be 53% just more damage, which is absolutely insane. Now, this is only for the period of time where you have all 3 of these 6-second buffs up at a time. So if you aren't frequently hitting with all the weapons, it could be kind of a pain in the butt, but it is relatively easy to set up a scenario where you hit your builder with your dual wielding weapons. You death blow, which gives you berserking, another more multiplier with your 2-handed slashing, and then you hoda with your hammer, and you get all the buffs there. Now, Walking Arsenal is also unique for Barbarians in that it is the only key passive right now that has any support from legendaries or uniques, and oddly enough, it has 2 legendary aspects and a unique. So all the other ones have nothing. This one has 2. Luckbringer aspect makes it so you get 12 to 20% increased lucky hit chance when all of the damage bonuses from the Walking Arsenal key passive are active. This is kind of nice, especially if you're looking to increase your lucky hit. This is a very solid big chunk of lucky hit. A lot of classes will have a total of 100% increased lucky hit, so this is a large chunk of that. And then the aspect of Relentless Arms Master, which comes out of the Codex in Skazglen, gives you gain 20 to 36% increased Fury generation while all damage bonuses from Walking Arsenal key passive are active. So after you go through and you do your hoda, that allows you to generate some more resources pretty quickly. And I think this is not bad, especially for something that just comes out of the Codex and is practically free. The unique that we have is the 100 steps. Now, who knows how rare uniques are truly going to be? I hear there's uniques, sacred uniques, and ancestral uniques. So I'm assuming the numbers on these kind of change and maybe even get better than what we can see. But after gaining the final damage bonus from the Walking Arsenal key passive, you automatically cast Ground Stomp and you gain 32 to 50 Fury. And this cannot happen more than once every 30 seconds. This could potentially lower the cooldown, make it so there's more Fury. This is just kind of neat, kind of interesting. I could see building around this if the cooldown was a lot shorter and there was a lot of reason for you to use Walking Arsenal. And if this wasn't enough to convince you that Walking Arsenal is kind of interesting, there's one more thing, actually 2 more things, 3 more things that really lean into Walking Arsenal. First one is Iron Maelstrom. So Iron Maelstrom, basically what it does is it bashes with your 2-handed bludgeoning, spins your 2-handed slashing around, and then spins your 2 dual-wielding weapons. So it activates Walking Arsenal automatically, and it does a ton of damage. For some reason, in the beta, this was doing way more than 120% bleeding damage. I don't know if it swipes twice and is hitting for 240% or something, or if it was bugged, but this was absolutely insane. And it has a 60-second cooldown, but Supreme Iron Maelstrom makes it so that dealing direct damage to an enemy after swapping weapons reduces Iron Maelstrom's cooldown by 1 second. So as you're just going through and doing your normal stuff, Iron Maelstrom's coming off cooldown a lot faster. It's that huge ult that's hitting all the corners of the screen. And I'm thinking that maybe in PvP, this thing's going to be ridiculous because you just bop, stun somebody, slash them up with huge damage, and yeah, they're probably going to bleed to death at that point. And then on top of that, when you change weapons, there are some additional benefits. I just typed the wrong thing. So there is the aspect of tempering blows. So after swapping weapons 6 times, you get some flat fortify, which is a nice source of just getting additional Fortify into your build. And then there is Furious Impulse, which goes up to 6 Fury every time you swap weapons. So this is just a nice, solid, flat Fury gain just for doing what you're doing already. And this should be affected by things that increase your resource generation. So this could be even more than 6 Fury just for swapping weapons, which is pretty nice. In the normal toolkit here, the things that you can apply different weapon to would be like Death Blow, you can assign a weapon to. Rupture always uses, I believe, your slashing weapon. Steel Grasp does not use any weapon at all. Kick does not use a weapon. Any of the war cries don't use, any of the shouts don't use a weapon. I believe both Charge and Leap will use a weapon, so you could assign a particular weapon to Leap if you want to use that as a movement skill. And then that's pretty much it. All of the core skills, all of the basic skills can have different weapons assigned to them, except Flay and Rend and Hoda all require specific weapon types, and Double Swing is always going to be your dual wielding because it's literally double swing. And so yeah, I think that this is basically my advertisement here for Walking Arsenal. I think that this is going to be pretty good damage, has a lot of synergies, a lot of things going for it, and I think it's probably going to be better than the next key passive that we're going to talk about, which is Unbridled Rage. So right on the tin, this thing looks freaking insane. We have core skills deal times 135% increased damage, but they cost times 100% more fury. So what this means is that your Whirlwind's going to cost you 50 fury a second. Hammer of the Ancients are going to cost you 70 fury. And it's pretty big expense. But I'm doing a lot more damage. It must be better, right? Well, in situations where you're just going to one-shot now due to this buff, yeah, it's going to be better. If you're just one-bapping the entire pack and you get to move on and you can like generate resources as you're moving, perfectly good. But in a stand-up fight against a boss or very tanky groups, the times when you need your damage the most, this actually underperforms quite a bit. And let's go to the math board here. So on the left here, we have what Unbridled Rage's math is like. If you do 100 damage to 35 fury costs, it is about 2.85 damage to fury cost. Now, if we increase it by Unbridled Rage, we're doing 235 damage, but it's costing us 70 fury. That leads us to a 3.35 damage to fury ratio, which is only a 17.8% more damage to fury ratio. On the other hand, since Walking Arsenal, when it's active, is just a 53% more damage multiplier during the window that all three things are up, that is 53% more damage to fury. You're increasing your damage, but there's no corresponding fury cost to weigh it down, so it's just going up. If you're taking advantage of swapping weapons more frequently, that helps with all of the things we showed before. Now you might be like, okay, Don, but you're never ever going to keep those 3 weapons up. That sounds like a pain in the butt. Well, even if you're only using 2 weapons, one for your generator, one for your spender, it's still a 21% gain of your damage to fury, which means you're still beating it out. And so to me, this kind of edges out those cases where it's like, okay, but you're saving some animations with Unbridled Rage, yada, yada, yada. To me, Walking Arsenal just seems better in general. Now, don't get me wrong. Once you really are just swimming in fury, just backstroking through willpower and all sorts of shout stuff is flowing in, Unbridled Rage is probably better. However, I don't really think that, especially early on, we're really going to have all that much stats. We're really going to be able to solve all of those fury problems so easily. And I think that Walking Arsenal is going to be the smart play. Now, if you like the idea of big number, go play Unbridled Rage. Nobody's telling you that you don't have to do that. I just think that you're going to run into a lot of scenarios where you're going to be out of fury, unable to attack. I can't do that right now. And when you hear that voice, think of me. That's pretty much it for these first 3 key passives. I'm pretty excited to be starting Barbarian, and we're pushing to level 100 with my group, We're playing with Gazzy TV and Pauls, and we're just be blasting as hard as we can to 100 in softcore. And we are all on the special Diablo 4 Twitch drops program, so you can come and watch us. Basically, the drops start on June 5th. You can earn cool loot for all of the classes, basically. There's different weeks for this. And then on top of that, if you gift subs to any of our channels, you'll be able to earn yourself a special mount, which is pretty neat. Now, I know probably what you're thinking. Whoa, 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 Don. You forgot to talk about Gushing Wounds. And so the reason I didn't talk about Gushing Wounds is because it's maybe even the very best out of all the key passives. But that's going to take another video. Thank you guys for hanging out, and we'll see you next time. Peace.